Hi, I'm Derri, and because I've read it before, I think I can talk to you a fair bit about Discworld. Hi, I'm Derri. Now, Discworld. I've read it quite a lot, and there's a lot of confusion around Discworld, and I thought I'd try and dispel a bit of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the series as a whole, and that should help explain why there are so many entry points that are suggested when the inevitable question arises of where should I start. Terry Pratchett has always been a writer. He moved through journalism for a long time and began writing his fiction toward the end of the 70s. As we move into the beginning of the 80s, he started into adult fantasy. Now, he found this genre to be absolutely hilarious, and he shows this in his first 3 Discworld novels by poking fun at the genre incessantly. He uses all of the cheesiest tropes. He uses apostrophes in every name possible. He uses improbable quests. He uses insane plot devices. He has the most ridiculous heroes getting out of situations. The entire things are literally mocking the genre. Now, they are actually really good books, and they are a good laugh. After the first 3 books, Neil was writing with a friend of his, and they were writing a book that would eventually kickstart both of their careers into a completely different level. And they were writing Good Omens. So he was a very good friend of Neil Gaiman's. And Neil really liked some of the characters in those first 3 stories, particularly the character of Death. So much so that he asked Terry to write him a book with Death as the main character. Now, Terry at this point was going to give Discworld away. He'd kind of done his thing, and he'd done his mockery, and he thought that was all Discworld could offer. But he wrote Mort, and we all owe Neil Gaiman a massive debt of gratitude. Because of Mort, Terry was able to see the possibilities inherent in this world that he had created. And over the next few books, he plays with that a lot. And you see that in the formation of some of the elements that would start to form what Discworld became. By book 8, and book 8 is Guards, he'd found his groove. And that's why most Discworld readers will suggest you start at Guards. Now from there, he expanded his world greatly. And because of the nature of Discworld, you don't have to read them in order. Unlike a lot of fantasy series that start at book 1 and build on themselves until they get to their whopping conclusion as many as a dozen books later, Discworld is 41 self-contained books. They don't build up to a great big climax. They don't have a massive overarching storyline. They are individual stories about characters living on the disc. If anything, they're the fantasy equivalent of a daytime soap opera, and it follows the lives and loves and mysteries and adventures of characters. Discworld is ultimately about characters. So where do you start? Personally, I always say anywhere you like, but there are several subsets within the series. And let's look at the series. The series is 41 books, which is huge. If you look at all of those books physically in one place, that is a lot of books. So no wonder people get daunted by it. Now, like, how can I even approach reading Discworld? That's crazy. It's easily done. 41 books, 9 short stories or novellas, 4 Science of Discworld books, 6 screen adaptations, stage shows, colouring books, almanacs, archives, companions. All of the things that you normally get in merchandising for a massive IP. But it's still just not quite the same as all the others. So what is it that makes Discworld so different? Part of it, I think, is the nature of the subsets. One of the reasons I like this graphic is because it does show you where whatever book you're reading comes in the great big picture of it all. It just gives you a sense of location within the series, because nothing really about the books tell you that. And personally, I kind of like knowing where it fits in the grand scheme of things. So I'm just going to quickly jump through a couple of the subsets here, just so I can show you that this image isn't as scary as it looks. So we're going to look at the wizards, where you can see that they had quite a lot of attention earlier in the series, and that fades away as the stories go on. And we're going to go now to the witches. And the witches, they kind of have little fits and spurts. You get one or two here and there, and then you get a little bunch of them. Now there's a little bunch at the end that work best if you read those few in order and have a different main character than the rest. For the witches, it transitions at the point of the wee free men. And at this point we go from our coven of witches up in the mountains to a young girl who is just beginning her journey into witchcraft, who lives up on the downs. And they begin to focus on her rather than the coven at that point in the series. There's still the interaction with the witches that we've met earlier, but the focus has shifted. But that's what those lines on this particular reading order graph shows you. And I just like that for that. This graph also shows you, if I bring back the original, it also shows you where the novellas or the associated books come in. For instance, at one point later in the series, one of the characters is reading a story to their child, and that children's book was written as an attached story. And you can see it's a dotted line that comes out from the main story and shows you that that particular children's book was mentioned in that particular entry into the series. So it shows you where the connections are. Earlier I said there were 6 screen adaptations. Now I very deliberately did not include the BBC America's version of The Watch, because personally I don't actually count it as part of Discworld canon, but I felt I probably should include it because it has been put all over book covers, and yeah. In my next video I'm going to talk about the Death sub-series. I have read them before, so I'm hoping to be able to explain why some people struggle with the Death series and what's particularly brilliant about it. Until that time, do leave me a comment. Let me know what your experience with Discworld has been, whether you've started one and didn't like it, whether you've started one, fallen in love, or if you just would like to start and perhaps want a bit of help in finding the one for you. Let me know, and I'll see you next time, where you can join me when I talk about the ones I've read before.